present questions, which was John and Lindsay and Jenny and Casey probably left, and Russ probably left as well. But thank you for the time you took to put those together. I really enjoyed my time. Before we get to the last session of the day, let me introduce Krista for a quick commercial break.
How many of you did your summer reading? Okay. I'm sure very few of you did your summer reading, and that'll be okay. There will not be a test tomorrow. Most of you did receive copies of this book before the summer. If you did not receive a copy, I can get you a copy, and if you really want a copy before tomorrow, I have 10 with me today. Just see me before we all leave today. Our conversation tomorrow is going to be based around some readings from this book. So even if you want a copy to skim through, and I'm going to send out an email. I have some suggestions of a few of the essays you might want to look at. They're not long. You know, you could just pick one or two to literally skim, like 5 minutes, and might be a little more equipped for tomorrow's conversation. So if you need a book, if you want to know why you might want to read, you can talk to Dr. Scott. You can talk to Dr. Caudill, who both actually found the book kind of interesting and compelling. So see me if you need a copy.
Now we are coming to the very last part of our professional development. And what do you hope to gain through a professional development? When you go to a professional development, collaboration. Well, I'll tell you one thing I really hope for is to get out early. Yeah, you want collaboration, you also want to gain resources. I always want something that I can use on Monday or Tuesday, the first day of my classes, or during that semester. So we just wanted to provide, as the teacher education department, last year we did a professional development, one of the sessions, just some of our teacher tricks and tools, since we have been trained at that. Classroom management was one of the list of the things that Sid and many of us has discussed. And when you're in higher ed, you think, well, they're adults. What are you talking about classroom management? Do you all have any challenges from time to time where students aren't engaged and maybe they're participating in other activities during class?
Never.
Or during while Sid's talking?
No. Never.
Never. Okay. Nobody ever has a problem with this right here?
Yes, we do.
Okay. One of my hints is location, location, location. Okay, so we know Brett Clark is here on his team. Okay, there, you know, whatever he's doing, and I'm kind of about right, but I'm not gonna get where it's inappropriate. And you just go back and forth, and eventually the person will put it, and you just keep going, and forget my steps and do that also. And they finally get the hint, and Brett's neighbors see, hey, you know, she's not on. What else, Debbie? When I mentioned this, that I had a challenge. What did you say about the?
A lot of times it's terrible. I don't have a problem with that sometimes because I already have a team they're moving around. That might be an elementary thing.
Okay, if there is action going on in your classroom, they do not have time to pick up that. Oh, okay, sorry. She wants you to repeat that.
Teacher voice.
Teacher voice.
A lot of times we're moving around in class, and so they don't really have time. It doesn't mean I don't ever have doing things like, or turning and talking to their neighbor and explaining what they're doing. Or I'll say, okay, what did I just say in 5 minutes? Tell your neighbor or talk about it. Kind of keeps them off their foot because I'm moving around, keeping them off their
Okay, through action. What about how many of you use these devices in class? Thank you. Would someone share how they use this device? Yeah.
This is a good one.
Kahoot, she said. It's a game type platform, yes.
Use resources in art, they look up the precise part I'm talking about. That way they have it all in visual and I don't have to have.
Fabulous, fabulous. Head.
Question, or they'll ask the question, and that's the question, like, phones look up, I'll randomly ask them, like, because then they can't go, doing, because it's like, I'm gonna randomly ask them, you better have the answer, but a lot of people that don't have it after clicking on them and stuff, or I'll tell them something, okay, so you got your phone out, here's what we're doing, and then all of a sudden, it becomes, now your phone's a part of the class.
It's similar to Russ's AI, you know. Go ahead and make use of it. And Shannon, I know I've been in your class before. You let them use devices all the time. Is there anything?
Biggest thing is, easy one, I use Mentimeter or a poll everywhere to put little polls throughout my PowerPoints, just make the page in, quick phone, take quick polls and use it as a discussion.
Did everybody hear poll everywhere? That's been around a while. We've used that before. And what was that?
Mentimeter?
I didn't know about that. So that's another one. All right. Any other suggestions, classroom manager? Okay. Did you spend a lot of time on your syllabi? Did you revise? Camry, you've spent time on your syllabi. Did you revise your syllabi over the summer? Do you, okay, Amanda, is your syllabi very important?
Yeah.
What, you're shaking? It's important? Really? I know this just happens to me. Have you ever had a student that didn't read the syllabus? You spent a lot of time on that syllabus, and then it was very important. So why do students not read their syllabus? Some.
They didn't have time, they can't find it. It's just too much.
They don't care, yes.
Right.
Wait, you gotta hear Sarah, this is important.
Because there's a lot of good information, but it's too much there and it just gets lost in words.
So teacher, ed department, or anyone, so what do you do to deter that situation? And to, well, you can't make a person care, but to, well, I guess you could light a fire under them. But to make it important to them, and make it significant, and make it useful, and yes.
I put a few questions in the check-in quiz. Look at your syllabus. On page 6, what does it say about your assignments on so-and-so?
Okay, so it forces them to go back and review that page, yes.
I even put my name on it, like, what is my name?
That's good. That's not a bad idea.
Is your syllabus quiz a selected response? Is there any open-ended questions?
It is both choice kind of stuff.
Yes.
So that it will self-grade, but they have to go look up information on there. And it also asks them questions about certain things that I want them to know. If you needed to know about this, this is on your syllabus.
Right.
You know, if my contact info, all these different things.
Right.
And then I don't just do my syllabus, I also put questions on there about the general course information for the college so that they know that those kinds of things that they need to know about, like disability services and various things, they know that, hey, this information is there and this is where we go to find.
And do they gain points for doing that?
Yes.
Okay, so then they care. So they want to make,
It's
right?
great.
Because they want to make, and it's easy peasy points for some, yes.
So I just, like us all consider that, yes, your syllabus is a PDF. How many people actually print it out? It's actually more, the more think about it, actually probably like a web page, because because it's gonna probably exist on someone's computer. So if you think about how web has evolved, it's not informative anymore. Actually, web is more about time to be interactive. So having hyperlinked text, other types of interactive things that will take them to other places on the internet, on the syllabus, which makes it more useful and more congruent with their experience on the internet as it is. So it's just an idea.
No, for sure. And then I think eventually we're going to do a session on making your syllabi significant and how to tailor it down so that it's not a multiplicity of pages. Yeah, I'm gonna put Shannon on the spot because she said she would share. This is his acronym. It's a really weird acronym, UDL. Dr. Jones, could you stand up and tell us what in the world is UDL?
What is UDL? Does anybody know what UDL is or where your perspective from? Okay. Everybody speak at once. Definitely universal design for learning. And where did that originate from? What section? No, actually, architecture. So think about the way people build houses and the way people build buildings. Can we look around in here and see any forms of universal design for architecture? 90 degrees. That's 90 degrees. Like it's something in the physical environment. Well, she talked about the doors being wide, but universal design is basically a way that we create something. I'm sorry, I'm a mover talker, so I'll try to stay in one spot. A way that we create something so it's universally accessible to everybody. So it actually comes from architecture. If you think about how they built buildings a long time ago, they didn't always have, it wasn't always accessible to everybody. They didn't have elevators, or they may not have had a wheelchair ramp or different things like that. So what they had to do is they had to go back and fix those buildings. Some buildings were grandfathered in, but some things they had to fix, and the fix didn't always fix the problem. So they may have put a ramp over steps, but it wasn't very user-friendly, different things like that. So somebody great with architecture came and said, hey, let's start thinking about how we design buildings ahead of time so that we design them in a way that's universally accessible to everybody. So if we take a look at the doorknob over here, look at that doorknob. Think about how doorknobs used to be made where it was just a doorknob, you had to use your hand. What was the problem with just using a regular doorknob? I didn't hear you. Grip. So if you had a problem with fine motor skills or something like that, and you couldn't grip your hand, you couldn't open the doorknob. If you were a mom who were holding your kid and a bunch of groceries, guess what? You can't open the doorknob. So it's not necessarily just about having a disability. It's about being accessible at that particular time. So if you look at the doorknob right here, for instance, if I have a bunch of groceries or something like that, I can open that door. If I have 2 kids in my hand, I can open that door. I can open with my elbow. If I don't have hands, if I'm in a wheelchair and I'm low, I can open that door. So that's, I'm sorry, the doorknob right here. Can everybody see the doorknob? Just think about the actual design compared to the old doorknob. In fact, it's regular system knob. Well, that's what universal design for learning is. It's about thinking about the lesson on the forefront, as opposed to getting into the lesson and saying, oh, well, this student doesn't have a computer, or this student doesn't have the background knowledge. It's really thinking about your lesson as you're creating a lesson, and thinking about the different variabilities in your classroom, the different cultural backgrounds, the different ability levels, the different learning styles, all those different things in the classroom, and thinking about that as you create the lesson so that you're incorporating all those things into the lesson ahead of time, instead of having to adapt and accommodate the lesson on the back end. So you're thinking about those multiple forms of presentation. How do you present the lesson? How do you hit all those varying learning styles in the classroom? You're using the videos, you're using the PowerPoint, you're incorporating different learning materials, different articles, all those different things. So multiple forms of presentation. You're also looking for multiple forms of expression. So you're allowing the students to show that they've learned the lesson in different ways. You're not just giving them a test at the end. You're letting them do a project. You're letting them have choice activities. You're letting them do discussions, all those different things. Sorry, I get nervous when I talk to a big crowd. And then you also have the multiple forms of engagement. So you're making sure the students learn the lesson because they are doing a variety of different activities in the classroom. So universal design for learning, thinking about the lesson on the front end, making sure you're accommodating all the different ability levels and learning styles in your classroom.
UDL. How many of you have ever ridden on a tilt-a-wheel?
Yeah. Mhm.
I think some young people don't know what a tilt-a-wheel is. So I want everyone to tilt over this way. Now we're gonna tilt over this one. Okay, the resource is called tilthighered.com. And I forget what the acronym TILC is, but you're gonna remember because we tilted today. The whole thing is very similar to the UDL in that the tilt, this whole series of activities and resources is about transparency of your assignments. What is the purpose? Really, we have PLOs, we have SLOs, we're looking at them, but if you really go back to them, what's your purpose? What's the task itself? What's the best way to learn it, teach it, and for your students to learn it, and the criteria? So I promise it's a fabulous resource. Go to tilthighered.com. Last but not least, Casey Klein was when I was in her first session. She was talking about what employers want. And when some of us went to Founders up and where was that? Up where youth live. They talked about GPAs were not as important as being able to think critically and be problem solvers, but sometimes that does go hand in hand. Inquiry methods of learning, Socratic method, many of you have been using that for years and years. If you don't, please look it up. Problem-based learning. And I always go back to and we were meeting the other day with Dr. Clark, the I do, where you model it, then we do, because learning is a social process, right? You learn, Krista, to ride your bike all by yourself? Just you and the bike, right? You watch the video, right?
Oh, sure.
Okay, she gets it. But anyhow, so, and about, let's just say, Shannon's a lot smarter than I am, so she's going to be the strong one. It's that problem. But what do you learn? How did you perfect your skills? By teaching, yes, and by practicing it. We do, and then your final assessment, we could choose a variety of assessments, is your criteria, strategy. And you can wrap it up, you can prove that you learned from what you saw your instructor do and what you did with your socialization process. Affecting our skills. Any other questions, comments, or what would you like to share? Y'all had all kinds of stuff at the meeting the other day, but now look how quiet they are. Okay, Shelley, I know Dr. Clinic would share.
I was originally supposed to talk about like multi intelligences. So, we all know everybody learns differently. Not everybody learns the same way. So whenever like I would go into my class, I want to know how that particular class learns. They may learn more verbally. This group may learn more kinesthetically. Everybody learns differently. So what I try to do in my class is I try to do like different kinds of lessons to reach every learner. I like to have like a short inventory, the first day of class to see what kind of learners I have, because I may have a group of all kinesthetic learners, so I know I'm going to have a lot of hands-on experience type of activities. So like I said, it's always very good to get to know your students, not only personally, but get to know how they learn best. The same way with you, you can take an inventory of yourself, how you teach best. And you may have to get out of your comfort zone and teach differently if you have different learners. So just keep that in mind. Like I said, not everybody learns the same way.
Yes.
I wanted to add something to that, but also classroom management and multiple intelligence also depend on what time of day the class is. I may not be ready to like get up and move around and say good morning, but if it's after lunch, then I might need to be having to get up.
Same with students, I mean.
Sure. So that's something I've had to take into account with the last few semesters is how can I design the class, knowing where they are.
Charles?
Has anybody tried to figure out what learning methods work best for the students so that you can change how you teach? So it just popped in my mind, how do these students learn best? And can you modify how you teach to incorporate those various things and say, oh, well, nobody does well with this, and I won't teach that way.
Absolutely. Howard Gardner, if you look up Howard Gardner, multiple intelligences, there's, a multiplicity of surveys, and have your students take those surveys, and then you can tailor it from there.
That's what I said about the inventories.
Yeah.
There's a book where it's just all inventories. And it's all, if you want to give it to your students, if you want to take one yourself, and it tells you what kind of learner that you are best.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing about that is they have to be into, like we talk about, it's a reader, writer world. And you want to grab those kids that do better by pulling something apart. But then you've got to get them to fit in to say, write down how you took that apart. Or my biggest example is how did you make that battery light up?
Yeah.
Make them, because we are all smart in different ways, but we have to kind of show them how they can be smart other ways.
I agree with your point that you really learn how to put something together by taking it apart first.
So, in order to know what your students need and how you're going to teach them certain methods first, you need to know your students. And I think that's what we spend a lot of time here in the education department. We want to know our students, and we get to know them. We get to know how they learn, what works for them. Does a quiz work for them, or is it talking to them to get the answers? So we take a lot of time doing that. And every time we do our syllabus for each semester, we're always talking about what we changed, pulled out, put something new in, added this for that particular student. We go beyond just saying this one size fits all syllabus is for everybody.
Right. And it's going to change every time too.
And also, some students can learn by taking it apart. Other students we know learn by YouTube.
That's true.
That's true. I changed my light bulb in my car doing that.
Please still.
Yes, Jen.
Yeah, I rely in my classes a lot on student input and stuff. Now, I noticed over the past several years, students are less willing to share their perspectives, opinions. In an article that I read, talked about the term called coercive self-censorship. I've heard the term, but it basically suggests the rise of multimedia. Everybody has one of these.
Right.
And so students are less willing to express opinions, so less posting. What's the strategy I could use to get them past that?
Absolutely. This has never happened to y'all. You give a question out in class and it's crickets, right? That never happens. It happens every time. So you have said you must turn to your elbow partner and talk. And somehow, then again, Clay and Susan aren't going to want to talk, okay? But eventually there's going to be somebody out of this group that some little dendrite fired and they're going to talk. Once Annette says it, they're going to want to talk, and Timothy's going to want to talk, and so on. Turn and talk is the best thing you've got going. And you always, sometimes you have that odd number, so you're going to have to force to be my partner, So, yeah, that's a bit of.
And those cards that John, you had gave us the deck of cards to bring out conversation.
Oh, the purpose patch.
Yeah, those are wonderful too. Yeah.
And we'll also mimic social media. They love to use social media so much. Like I give my kids assignment, what would you tweet about this? So even though it's not a real tweet, or what would your Facebook post be about this? That way they can still mimic that social media environment that they love so well. And you can use it and pull it up in class, if you have to. That way, because they don't want to talk, they don't feel open talking, but they may feel open, posting something. get up there in front and present it, but they're okay with me playing the recording that they did prior.
Yes.
One thing that I do that tends to work in this way is the participation points that I have carved out for each, because I teach performance, inquiry, and speech. So they're interactive, they're discussion based, you know? And so I give them sort of choose your own adventure ways to earn those points. If you're more of an auditory person and you're, you know, listening, and then you're more verbal, or you're more into writing, or you're more into reflecting, and, you know, whatever. And so I give them different ways. Some of them email me to earn their points later in private. Some of them hand their class notes to me. Some of them talk to me afterwards. Some of them talk a lot during class. And they're still eligible to earn the same amount of points, but they don't have to do it the same way. And I think that really helps build their confidence. And then the other thing that I do, and backing up to the syllabus, is I think a lot of times the students get intimidated by the syllabi because they seem like this wall of procedure and policy that didn't come from a person. And so just like the students learn differently and process differently, I tell them just as a human, I sit them down like a person on the first day of class, and I say, this is designed so that you get the best me that I can give you, to give you the material. This is the way my brain works. And that doesn't mean I'm going to be rigid. That doesn't mean I'm not going to be movable. We're going to compromise. I'm going to meet you where you are. But this is the fence around my playground. And I'm so glad you're here. But just like you go to one auntie's house and they make you take your shoes off and the other auntie doesn't, these are my rules, and I'm glad you're here and I'm happy to host you, but I have them for me because this helps me give you the material better. And once they hear that, they feel less, I think, antagonized and intimidated by it.
I love what you said about choice. So Newberry College is the Burger King of the South, because you can have it your way. You can have choices as long as you demonstrate mastery of the skills. There you go. You put that in.
Yeah, I think, can I add into what Mandy just said too? When I've taught certain classes and I use the forum feature, the discussion forum, students earn participation that way, that they don't want, when they don't want to talk up in class, and they can have their blogs there or whatever you want to call them. I mean, they could be social media posts within the class. In the discussion forum, yeah.
Ideas. It's sunshiny out today, so we can have
It was. It was. It's about to start pouring rain.
Yeah, so Susan and members of the education department, thank you. Thank you for leading this. The weather's about to get nasty. So I would like to recommend that you pack up as quick as